to notice, like it's, I mean, obviously, to be able to refer a child, you need to have documentation.
Exactly.
In 8 weeks worth of that. So that's why we have to accumulate data on it. But as an experienced person who would know, you just know right away and say, okay, there's something else that goes beyond this child. Like there's something else that's probably not processing.
Right.
Just, you know, as a little, become aware. But you can't prove that until you have documentation.
Exactly.
You know, you can tell them, I know, I'm an experienced teacher, but it's not, you can't prove it. You know, you have to prove it.
I'm wondering, since we're talking about like formative and assessment kind of things, I'm wondering if it would be, and I don't know, I mean, maybe your thoughts on this too would be helpful, if we have her explore and maybe just kind of look into the types of assessments that you are using with the kids.
Well, that's what I was going to supply her with. Like, I was going to give her, yeah, I'm not going to give her something that she's going to, no, yeah, she's going to do something that it's already.
And that could be a learning objective too, and just, you know, learning, you know, the types of assessments that are used with the kids. Mm-hmm. And I think this would help you to understand, you know, how that all works together with, you know, this progress monitoring. Because, you know, this progress monitoring is something that you're constantly doing throughout the year, and then the kids are assessed at the end of the year, correct? Mm-hmm. To determine what is it that they've learned and remembered. Mm-hmm. And I think that, yeah, and what absolutely their gains and, you know, their challenges. So I think that would be really helpful for you too to kind of understand how those things work together. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna write that down too. Okay.
That's why she's always like, oh my God, there's so much testing. There's so much testing. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's true. Like a lot of the testing that we do, like for instance today. Right? We had the spelling test. Mm-hmm. We had the math test. And the reading test we didn't have time to finish because it was just like way too long for these kids. Again, because of my shelter class. So, but usually we have the reading test too. Seriously, the kids are mostly just like, it's the ones that fill in the little bubbles, you know. Okay, I'm done. Because they can't even read it. I mean, it's seriously, it's something they're just going through the motions. I have 4 children who can maybe, I have one that can read the material. He goes to walk to read, okay, because he's on level. 4 others we're going to push, you know, to kind of get up there, but they know enough English and they don't know enough to, you know, to read where they're at that where you can rely those test scores to be, you can rely on those test scores to actually show a little bit of what they've been learning. The rest of the entire class, they can't even understand English. So it's useless. I mean, we're wasting time. This is just how I feel. We're wasting time correcting all that stuff just to prove that they are still below level. It doesn't prove anything. Yeah. But that's what we as a district are kind of, you know, complaining about in the ESL department is that you have a lot of newcomers. It's really frustrating because I can tell you that they're red. I can tell you that they're red flags. Do you know what I mean? But what else do we have? So I have to do the dibbles, I have to do the reading street test, I have to do what the district tells me to do.
Right.
We have to devise something else that'll guide us as to what we're going to do with our kids. And I think the sight words will help you, any kid, regardless of whether they know English or not, they're going to eventually learn some words in English, so that's going to be a good guide. And they're going to have to, even if a kid doesn't know English, or does, they're sight words. That's the reason why they're called sight words. They're frequent, high frequency words. Yep. And there's no real way of how to teach how to read those words because they're called sight words. Exactly. You have to know them by sight. Yeah. So that's why it's valuable for whether they speak English or not. Yeah. It's whether they see the word and they know the word.
They can identify it.
So again, I think that at least shows it's a true sign of some kind of progress regardless of whether it's reading street and all that kind of junk that they have to do that I think is useless right now. Right now. But they have to do it. And you know what? It still teaches them something. It teaches them how in America, this is how you sit down, this is how you take a test, this is what happens when you're frustrated, this is what happens when you don't understand what this says, just try your best. They do the best they can, and it teaches them that. You know, this is what you're going to have to do when you take kneecaps next year. Right, you know what I mean? Yeah. So unfortunately, it's frustrating, but it still teaches them that, and it still teaches us as teachers, this is reality. What do you do?
What do we do with them?
Yeah, what do you do? Complain, and then move on.
So what is it, you know, for her to do this progress monitoring with the students, what kind of, is there something that the school already has?
Well,
as a tracking?
Yeah, well, it's something that I've used in the past, and I can show you.
Just so, I better understand the tool that you guys are using so I can, better help her.
But we're gonna get a nice little binder for her. So basically, this is what I've been using.
It is stuffy in here.
It's so hot here.
I'm like, my throat is getting like.
This is the original
Itchy.
pages, okay? So that's the Dilchford list by reading levels, okay? So this is the pre-primer, primer, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3.
This sounds
These
like
are
our
all,
QRI stuff we just went over the other day.
yeah, those are these,
Oh, gotcha.
okay? And I color-coded them just for my purpose, So green is the easiest, that's the K level, right? That's pre-primer.
Yeah.
Pink is K to first, purple is first grade, orange is second grade. So they ultimately need to know this by the time they're here,
Oh,
these words.
does this look
And
familiar
altogether
to
it's
you?
220 words.
Okay. So Emily, our special educator,
Emily,
did a
okay,
QRI 5, which is a similar tool
Yeah.
on Emilexi. Last week, do you remember doing this with her?
No.
She didn't do this with you? Did she to identify words? I have the results. You don't remember?
Maybe it's not that particular page.
No, not this
Last
particular
week?
one. Yeah, was it last week or the week before?
I think that was like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, she did a QRI 5, which is actually
I think
similar
I'm
to
away
this.
from Ramona.
Yeah.
But I was
Remember she had you
thinking-
read those list of words?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking too, like, I talked to my reading specialist, right? And I said, what are you guys doing? Because this is super room where we put all the MSW kids, which is like tier 3 type of kids, from all second grades, and they go to the super room during walk to read. And I only have 3 true MSW kids. And she's like, if you want to send them in there, you can. I decided not to, just because the walk to read time interrupts my extension of core during Reading Street.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I had to decide, I'm like, oh shoot, do I send them or not, So I said, can I always decide afterwards, like in January? She goes, fine, you can do that, Just because if I think they're kind of, the other kids are holding them up, maybe I'll send them. But anyways, they're going to be those kids that she's going to target,
Okay, great.
And then when I talked to her, I said, this is what I've always used. Then she said, and this is what I had you take copies of, so now you know where this is all coming from. It's here in my pile of junk.
I maybe moved it over there.
You did?
No.
I do have an organized way. It was just because oh, here it is, right here. Okay, so this is basically what she gave me, and I think Emilexi could take care of.
Oh, nice.
But I like this because, let me explain the reasoning behind her. It looks really tempting, no? Okay, so what I think would be good was for her to have a file for each kid, okay? Every kid gets one of these. If they pass beyond the 220 words, then she doesn't need to test them anymore.
Exactly.
She's done, right?
Yep.
Because this is targeting what the kids need. If a kid doesn't need it, then what's the point, right?
Right.
Okay. And I still have, I actually already tested some of these kids by myself. So we already have a benchmark.
Okay.
And I was thinking, the way she organized, this is the same words, but the way that this reading specialist organized things is by lists. You remember making these, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So these words are all by list, like list 1 up to 11. And the way they organize them is by frequency. So list 1 is basically the most frequent words that they're exposed to constantly, which helps. So I think it's a better invention of this.
Yeah, that actually sounds better.
Yeah, because they're all sight words. They're all these words,
Right.
but they're in frequency, in order of frequency.
In order of frequency.
Yeah, does that make
right.
sense to
No,
you guys?
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and then it gets harder. Like the list 2 is a little bit less frequent. List 3 is a little bit less frequent. List 2, but whatever.
Right.
So you can, and then she basically gave me like, okay, so list 1 what does Lisberto, for instance, know? He knows the, to, the, and, whatever. And then she can make like little cards or whatever to target those particular kids' needs.
Right.
That's my idea. I mean, I don't know.
I love that. I love it. I
I
love the
basically,
way.